thank you guys all for coming. We will be doing a deep dive into Rise of Skywalker, but first I want to go around and have everyone kind of introduce yourself. So let me know, who you are, where we can find you and your content. Um, I'd love to get your top three Star Wars film ranking, because that's how I judge you as a person. Um, and also, how did you join the Star Wars community? Because you guys are all creating content and stuff, and I watch all you guys, love it all. But yeah, if you can tell me a little bit about that, and I always go in the same kind of route. So Sawyerism, you are up first.
Hey guys, my name is Sawyer. I'm Sawyerism on TikTok and Instagram, and I also have a podcast with Hannah. It's called the Star Whores Podcast. And if you know me, I probably don't usually sound like this. But if you want to hear the full story, you can go look at my most recent TikTok. But how I got into the Star Wars community was I posted a video about my rankings for the Star Wars films, and I put Rise of Skywalker at the top. And that didn't go over so well with the gatekeepers. Um, so, for the past, I don't know, what, 8 months now? 8, 9 months? I've been talking like this on pretty much every single platform that I can possibly. Yep, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, every live stream. Yeah, no. But anyway, um, I've decided that it's time to, be as authentic as possible. So this is what I really sound like. And my top three Star Wars films, I think, are still pretty hot takes. I gotta go. Um, Number three, Last Jedi. Number two, Empire. And number one, Rise of Skywalker.
Okay, I love it, and when I see all of the stuff that gets like spouted out, especially on female creators, I can understand wanting to distance yourself a little bit more from those people. So, yeah, I'm here for it. And how about you, Hannah?
Yes, hi, my name is Hannah. I am Discount Bo-Katan on TikTok. The way that I got into, I guess, the Star Wars content creation world is I was doing TikTok because Sawyer was doing TikTok. We're best friends IRL. And I had decided I was going to do a theater kid TikTok account because that's the stuff that I had seen, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to talk about musicals, that kind of stuff. And then occasionally I would post about Star Wars, and then at a certain point I just ran out of things to say about theater because that's like my that's what I do. I'm an actor and I'm at school for drama, and but just being away from like physically doing theater for so long kind of has me like, I there's only so much I can talk about. There's only so much I can be excited about. So then I started posting almost exclusively Star Wars stuff, and people started liking it. I was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we have fun there. But my top three Star Wars rankings, I would say at number one is The Last Jedi, number two Empire Strikes Back, and number three Rogue One.
Ooh, okay, interesting. I like it. Also, if you guys don't know, Discount Bo-Katan is the person that got me back into playing Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So the people who ask about me playing that's why. And you don't want to go up against her because she has multiple god tier squads. Yeah, it's awesome. And last but certainly not least, I got my boy J. Kev Parker, who was present for my very first podcast. So always a pleasure to have you back. But yeah, how about you?
Well, I have been a Star Wars fan since, well, before I even knew what that meant, because I was less than a year old when the first film came out and got to see it in theaters and got to see them all since. And I just kind of happened on TikTok because my sons, I'm a little older than the rest of you, and my sons who are now in college, so yeah, were on TikTok and they were like trying to do the little, dance moves and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get on this app. And then I saw there's Star Wars content on this app and there's Marvel content and stuff. So I started creating stuff, and boom, people started watching it. So here I am, and just having a good time with that. Top 3 films. The first one is The Last Jedi, and there's no uncertainty there. The rest of my ranking does tend to move around, but it was The Return of the Jedi until I watched The Last Jedi. And as soon as I walked out of the theater, I said, that's my favorite Star Wars film now. So I would say The Last Jedi. The Rise of Skywalker is probably second. And the first one is it's a tie between The Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi. I know that's cheating, but I really, but I love all the Star Wars films. I just happen to love these stories most because I resonate most with them.
Yeah, that's totally cool. And you know, again, I always enjoy your content because you're always pointing out, you know, some of the finer qualities of these films that a lot of people seem to miss. And I'm happy to have people that, you know, have this stuff ranked so high. Personally, again, everyone knows my story of watching Empire Strikes Back over and over again, but getting involved in Star Wars TikTok, I downloaded TikTok on May 2nd because I just had been watching season 7 of the Clone Wars and I needed to talk about it. And then I kept seeing like these people talk about how come R2-D2 didn't tell Luke that Vader was his father, and people were talking about like it was just like profound like realization. And I'm instantly like, well, because R2 wasn't around for any of the Vader stuff. Like, he wasn't there. One day Anakin just left. Even when he went to Mustafar, he told him to wait by the ship and just never came back. I don't know that R2 even knows. Just maybe he does. Also, they never ran into each other later, so I don't know. And so that was my very first TikTok, and now we're here.
I remember some of your early ones. I thought this guy's going to go far, and he did. You did.
Yeah.
I also remember that first one Sawyer mentioned. Like, a bunch of us swooped in to be like, you guys can let people like things, and she just blossomed into this star.
And that's how I was introduced to Shayla Wren as well, was because she made a video defending Sawyer, and I was like, I love this girl already. I got to follow her.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I'm in no way paid to say this or endorse this, but Sawyer is wearing some awesome General Grievous earrings, and yeah, y'all should check out B Dazzler Far Far Away store because yeah, she makes cool stuff. Anyways,
Far Far Away Factory.
Far Far Away Factory. Sorry, my bad. I haven't bought anything from it yet, but this is my support. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Where did my notes go? Dang it! All right, there we go. So, first of all, I gotta ask, like, how did you guys feel walking into the theater to watch this film, and how did you feel walking out of it? Because like each time watching Star Wars, it's like an experience. And I'm going to Hannah first on it.
I was so nervous. And I had seen a meme before going into it. It was like, it was one of those things where it was like a bunch of hands piled on top of each other. And at the center it said, hating the rise of Skywalker. And on the outside was like all of the arms piled on top of it had like a different thing. And it was like, these people hated it and these people hated it and these people. I was like, oh fuck. But like, ooh, this is not a podcast where we can swear.
You're fine. We don't make it a regular thing, but it's
yes.
Cool. No worries.
Okay. And sorry. And then, so yeah, I was very shaken and rattled and nervous. But also before that, I had been incredibly nervous because I was like, what's going to happen with these characters? What's going to happen with, I think I was most nervous about, is Ben going to get redeemed? Are he and Rey going to end up together? What's going on with Rey? What is she going to be up to? I was so just on edge about like, oh God, I hope that they're doing okay and that kind of thing. I hope that certain things happen. And it was, it was a nerve-wracking experience walking into that theater.
And what about walking out? I
was satisfied. I was really into it. I I was heartbroken, but I was heartbroken in the best kind of way, I think. Because unlike a lot of people who ship Reylo and love Ben Solo, I loved the scene at the end where he gave his life. And I know that we'll talk about that a bit more later, but I thought it was so fitting and perfect and beautiful. And I at the very end, I wasn't into the Rey Skywalker bit initially, and I learned to appreciate it more as I heard people talk about it. So I kind of had like an eye roll that punctuated it at the end. But then, no, I mean, I walked out feeling like, ooh, okay. But most importantly, I walked out feeling incredibly vindicated because everything that I had like fan theorized that would happen happened somehow. I was like, I think that Ben's gonna give his life for Rey. I hope that they kiss. I think that's about the maximum that we're gonna get. And I had been like, Sawyer and I had been Rey Palpatine theorists for a very long time, and I was just like, wait a second, did they hack my emails? What's going on here? So it was a wild ride all throughout.
Yeah, Sawyer even has the Rey Palpatine Twitter handle.
It's Instagram, but yes, it is
Instagram.
true. I think I was the one who got on board with that first, but yeah, no, I have owned, and you can go find the account. I've owned the username Rey Palpatine since 2016, and no gatekeepers. This is not me saying that Rey's not a Skywalker. Just want to clear that
up. But yeah, how about you, Kev? Jacob?
So walking in, I was excited because The Last Jedi just blew me away. For the film, I was excited. In terms of what everyone else thought of it, at that point, I couldn't have cared less because of the whole petition to get rid of The Last Jedi and all that garbage. I'm just like I do every film. I'm going to like it or I'm not going to like it. I'll go in. I was with my kids. We were watching it, and it was pretty much everything I thought it would be. It wasn't exactly the story points I thought it would be, but in terms of just the grandness of it and the resolutions and things, George Lucas famously said it's always hardest to do the third film, to wrap everything up, and you have to just rush to the end, basically. And yes, they did that, but that's pretty normal, so that didn't bother me. Walking out, I was pretty satisfied, and I thought, this is incredible. I didn't see the Rey Skywalker name coming at the end until she looked, in that whole emotional moment of the Force Ghost looking at her. That, I know we'll get into that, but yeah, I was just really happy at the end, but also like, oh man, this saga is over, but we're going to get more Star Wars. So more to come.
Awesome. So personally, I had a little bit different of an experience. When I walked, I mean, I was hopeful walking into it. Because I really enjoyed The Last Jedi. Like, as soon as The Last Jedi ended, I turned to my buddy I saw it with and was like, man, people are gonna love this movie. And so walking into this one, I was just I was just hopeful. I mean, there are certain things I was like, okay, well, it's called Rise of Skywalker, and we know this is going to be the end of the Skywalker saga, so all of them are going to die, and she's going to end up being a Skywalker at the end. Like, it's like, that seems obvious to me, but yeah, after seeing it, I didn't like it the first time, and I was confused. There was so, like, I had a bunch of like gripes with it, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just surprised. And so me and my wife went and saw it a second time, and I was like, oh, okay, so all my questions actually do have answers and I just missed them. Okay, yeah, but still overall, it was a very different tone than what I was anticipating, and so that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So yeah, let's jump into it. All right, so we got to first act, and also, I know I'm calling on you guys because it helps to not have people talk, too much over each other. But I want this to be conversational. Like, feel free to jump out and stuff, and like, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. But yeah, first act, we have like the opening crawl of the movie. Somehow Palpatine's return, all the way over to the fake Chewie death. What jumps out at you? I'll go to Jacob first. But what jumps out at you for the first act of the film?
The first act,
Oh, I'm
of course.
sorry. I I skipped Sawyer on the last topic of walking in and walking out.
Oh,
I
please
apologize.
take it away.
Yeah, yeah. I
You're,
can't hear you. I'm sorry.
yeah,
You
you're
have a
muted.
tap mute.
Whoops. Sorry. You can keep going. It's fine. I was just teasing you.
No, no, I do want to hear it. It wasn't intentional. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Okay. Um, well, I was with Hannah, which is why I am so excited about which is why I was so excited about doing this podcast and like suggesting her be on, because we went together. We were so excited. Like, this was it. You know, we've re-entered the fandom together. We stuck it out. We've been Team Raylo since The Force Awakens. I went in. I'm terrible. When I get really nervous about something, I am so quick to spoil myself so that I'm readily prepared for it. So I did get intel on the Raylo kiss before we went in, but
Blasphemy.
the rest.
And she will like vaguely spoil it for me as well. She'll be like, you're gonna feel like this and I'll like dropping little hints, and I'm like, stop it, I don't want your hints.
I'm an asshole. But anyway, the other thing that I had, though, I mean, if anything, what I learned from The Last Jedi was that people are just going to be so critical no matter what. And I love The Last Jedi, but the Rotten Tomatoes critic score versus the audience score are really different. So I knew people were not going to like this movie no matter what. And I also figured, because there's so many Star Wars fans, there's no way they're going to get the end of the Skywalker saga perfect. So I didn't go into this movie thinking, wow, it's going to be the best movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, there is no way they were going to get it perfectly right, because you can't satisfy everybody. But then when I walked in, and I think this is a criticism that all people, or a lot of like people who don't like the sequels have, is like, oh, it felt like a fan fiction. That's why I like it. Because it felt like I wrote the fan fiction. I was like, yes, Rey, she's related to Palpatine. She kissed Ben, and she used Force lightning. Like, I feel like I contributed to this story. If you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you know that my bio says that Lucasfilm owes me royalties, because I felt like I predicted everything, and I had abstract ideas, and they all came true. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, sorry.
No, you're fine.
But yeah. So Jacob, let's jump into it on the first act. What jumps out at you? You know, from the opening crawl all the way to the fake Chewie death. I feel is the first act of the film.
Okay. So I was really into the first, scene where Kylo was going scorched earth, literally. I can't even say that word today. But I did not know that was Mustafar the first time I watched it. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's not all lava. No, the planet's probably not all just a ball of lava. But that was still interesting to see him just be so intense with his anger at that point, and consistent with it, just slaughtering everybody. But then went through, and we saw Rey do her little like I can't even moment. I laughed at that. I knew that was going to irritate some people, but I don't care. Like Sawyer said, you can't please everybody in these films, and this anyway, we'll get into that another point. But I loved the interaction with Rey and Finn and Poe, and that whole thing. But also in the back of my head is always, how are they handling the Carrie Fisher thing? Like, every scene I'm looking for her, and I'm hoping that, because I knew they had used different footage and things like that, and I didn't want that to take me out of the film at all, and it didn't. I mean, honestly, I'm super impressed at what they could come up with based on what they had available, and so that was great. Rey jumping over the that tie. That wasn't the whisper. That was the silencer. Or no, that was a whisper.
That
TIE
was
whisper.
the whisper, yeah.
Yeah, so the TIE whisper, I did a TikTok wrong on that, and you helped me get that one right. So her jumping over that, I thought, was one of the most badass moments I've ever seen with a lightsaber. And then that whole thing with the lightning, shook me. So yeah, it was just a roller coaster. That's the best way I can describe it for me, the first act.
Yeah, and so one thing that I really do love is, like you said, that opening scene was on Mustafar, and it's one of the newest things that we have now that we actually have a solid canon, is everything matters now. So the planet on Mustafar is actually healing itself, and if you want to know why, you can play the VR game, Vader Immortal, and you find out what happened, which is also why it looks a little bit nicer in Rogue One than it did in, it was already starting there, and it's even better now. It's just really cool. But how about you, Sawyer? Mute again.
God, I keep doing that. Stupid mic. Anyway.
Mine changes colors, so it's...
I know. Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of funny because the first, 2 minutes or so, the first maybe 5 minutes, I remember sitting there going, well, really, the opening crawl. I remember sitting there going, what? This is the worst opening crawl in all of Star Wars, because you can't tell me it's not. I love this movie. That is the worst opening crawl. And the dead speak, what is that? So I remember going to Hannah and be like, that's a weird way to open the movie. But then it got really interesting really quickly, and then we got, he went to Palpatine. I wasn't super crazy about that moment, but then we get to Finn and Poe and my guy Claude and everybody in the Falcon, and then they hyperspace jump or skip, and I just was like, wow, there's the action. Kind of the same way I feel about The Last Jedi. I feel like the opener to that film as well is bang, this is Star Wars. So that quickly turned around for me. And then we have Rey in her training, doing her little training run, and getting to see what she's been doing with all this time and truly putting in all this work to become a Jedi. And then she calls Leia Master, and that for me was just such, I don't know, that just really hit, because I feel like we all knew, in some way, shape, or form, Leia was going to not make it through the movie for obvious reasons. But that just felt so good. It made me feel really warm inside when she did that. And I just thought it was a great way to set up the movie. And for the first time in this trilogy, we get Finn, Poe, and Rey on an adventure together, which I really, really enjoyed throughout the entire film. But I think that was something that a lot of sequel fans were hoping for, and we finally got it.
Yeah, it's because because Rey never met Poe until the end of The Last Jedi. It was supposed to happen in The Force Awakens, but that scene got cut from the film. So, yeah, I'm happy they tossed it in. But yeah, how about you, Hannah? What jumps at you from the first act?
The first act, I mean, okay, I know that we had already seen this scene where Kylo goes and talks to Palpatine, because they released that scene as a little teaser. Watching it on the big screen, it was even more intense. I am such a huge fan of that scene. I love every instant of it, and I think the part that just makes my heart go ta-chonk is the moment where he's switching between voices and he's doing Snoke's voice. I'm every voice you've ever heard inside your head, and he cycles through Snoke's voice and then Palpatine's voice and then Vader's voice, and that just got me. I was like, oh my god. Not only because it's Vader's voice and that's impactful in and of itself, but that it is such an important part of, I feel, Ben's character, is the fact that he has had these voices in his head his entire life, and he has, Snoke has been physically whispering in his brain since he was a kid, and it's just to see that sort of acknowledged in that way was heart-wrenching.
You're saying that just real quick, it just makes me wonder, has Palpatine been working on his Vader impression for a year? Vader walks out of the room and he's like, all right, it is your destiny. I don't know, I'm just picturing.
Inside your head.
He knew he might need it. But no, I just, I love that moment so much. I love that entire scene. The Snoke in the tube I thought was really cool. Exegol as a whole, really cool. And we leave that for so long. And we don't come back to Kylo and Exegol until we're on Pasaana, and he kind of shows up in like that Force time. So it sort of leaves you like, wait, what? Oh, you know what? I'm dumb. No, they totally have a First Order scene in between there. But where they have alien voiced by Mark Hamill's head on the table. But it's just like it almost just it jumps right to the heroes, and you're like, wait, no, go back! Oh my god! And I love that sort of feeling of like, no, I'm on the edge of the cliff, but I want to jump over. But then I think the big part in this act for me is on Pasaana when Rey is trying to retrieve Chewie's ship, and the lightning shoots out of her hand. I physically screamed when that happened.
I think we both did, and there were not a lot of people in the theater because we both went to the earliest possible showing, and there weren't a lot of people there, and they were all like, ugh.
They didn't like us very much, I don't think. I didn't even hear them, to be honest. I was too caught up in this. It's the same way that like I was too obsessed with the fact that Rey just shot Force lightning out of her hand. That was blowing my mind because I had since given up on hashtag Rey Palpatine. I was like, oh, okay, she's a nobody. Cool. I'm good with that. I was like, wait a damn minute. I think I grabbed Sawyer's arm. I was just staring. It did not register that Chewie had died, or like that we were supposed to think he had died. I didn't even get it. I didn't hear the Chewie. I was just locked in on that frame. I was like, what? Same way that in the season finale of Mandalorian season 2, I didn't even have time to cry about Din and Grogu. I was like, Luke is here. What the hell is happening? I get like locked in on these things, and I just for a few minutes I cannot think about anything else. So that's a habit of mine. But the Force lightning, oh my god, I cannot. Even if I hadn't been theorizing that, I cannot begin to explain to you what that did to me.
I mean, I think that the displays of I know that a lot of people, who do the whole Mary Sue argument try to use this to further that, but to me, like watching Rey use all of these Force abilities, we see her use Force heal, and then she uses Force lightning. That's not one she learned, but what's the other one? We were just watching this yesterday. This carries on, but she does the whole you will let us pass. She chose so many different Force abilities that she's learned because she's been studying these books, and I thought that was just a really cool thing to witness because you can just see how much she's grown from where she was at The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And I think it's consistent with the fact that sometimes Rey has all this power and like no training, and sometimes she just accidentally will use a Force ability with like no, control over it. If anyone is arguing that Rey is a Mary Sue because of the Force lightning thing that happened, do they think she was trying to kill Chewbacca? That just kind of, boggles my mind a little bit, because I think her whole thing is that she's wielding this giant razor sharp sword. Sorry, this is not meant to be a literal lightsaber thing. Metaphorically, she's wielding this crazy sword of power, and she has no idea what to do with it. She has no idea how to handle all this power that she has. So sometimes she does things and she messes up. And I think that the Force lightning being like a byproduct of that immense power that she still doesn't quite have a handle on. I think that's very in character for what we've seen of her, and I think that it set up the Palpatine reveal beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, with that, I as a big Legends fan myself, what she did is exactly how everyone in Legends learned Force lightning. They did it on accident. And it's not like a thing where you're your training is specifically to help turn up the volume. It's to be able to control it, and so that's, I thought they did that very well. But yeah, I mean, when the movie opened, first of all, one hill I will die on is I think it was really dumb to play Palpatine's message in Fortnite.
Yeah, I was waiting for this to come up. Oh, so bad.
Yeah, that was just a bad choice.
Wait, elaborate.
The message, you know how the message rings out and it's like Palpatine's back. The message was like what it says is in Fortnite. It was revealed in Fortnite.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In hold.
This is a canon message.
Yeah.
But does that mean that Fortnite is canon in Star Wars? Is that okay? You said the words in canon, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and the person who read it also is not very good at doing Palpatine's voice. There's a bunch of things, but as soon as the movie jumped off, I did like that we jumped straight into action. I wish we had gotten to see Webbish Bog in the movie, which is a weird little alien spider thing on top of a giant super buff baby that lives in a huge body of water. It's super weird, and they did film it. And if you read the Vader 2020 comics, you'll get to see Vader meet that character for the first time. I wish they had kept it, because that's just super weird. But yeah, I mean, it just jumped right into the story, and you're just like, okay, we're off, we're going. And that's one thing that I do enjoy about Star Wars in general, is the reason that we have these opening crawls is to set up certain things that are not necessarily about the journey that we are going to watch in the movie. It did kind of bug me when they say Palpatine has returned, and because not everyone knew that he was Sith or dark side or any of that stuff. Now, I'm sure it was, but thinking about it, I'm sure it was common knowledge to the Resistance from Leia and stuff. But I mean, the only person that ever saw him do anything dark side and lived was Luke.
And I thought that they could have, I don't know, the fact that the Palpatine is back, the dead are speaking thing, it felt like it was something that had happened before the movie started, but that I kind of wanted to see. I wanted to find out that Palpatine returned with the Resistance a little bit more. I know that they broadcast that they received a broadcast signal, but it was already established in the opening crawl, and I was like, I don't know if I feel like I'm being dunked in a little bit too much. Let's go back and I don't know.
No. But yeah, I mean, we did just, like I said, it was off to the races though, where we got to see Rey training, and they actually foreshadowed a lot of stuff very well. We got the first time where Leia tells her, "Don't be afraid of who you are." And when I watched that scene, I actually had to pause and rewind. I think my theory, I guess headcanon or whatever, I think that both Rey and Leia knew that Leia was going to die. They both kind of pause, the
100%.
way that they pause and look at each other, and then they're going to talk, and then Leia says, tell me when you get back. I think she knew that they weren't going to have that conversation, and it wasn't important for them to have, which is also kind of like what Yoda did to Luke when Luke was like, "Is Vader actually my dad?" And Yoda's like, I'm sleepy. I'm gonna die now." And you're like, okay, first of all, that's the best way to dodge an awkward conversation I've ever seen. Just straight up die. But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it, and the pacing and things of the film reminds me of Solo more than anything else. It's just moving in a straight line. But all right, jumping on to the second act, right? So we thought Chewie died, and they move off to the next planet where, they're going to wipe C-3PO. We get to meet Babu Frick. But this all the way kind of through when Leia dies is the next section. And we will go to Hannah first, I believe.
Yeah, Kajimi is, I think, so interesting to me, because they're there to like discover, I guess the plot reason that they're on Kajimi in particular is because it's where Poe has spent so much time. And then we learn about like Poe and his backstory and like his ex-girlfriend, and that sort of situation. And I think that it it was a little disappointing in that it didn't reveal more of like Poe pre-resistance. I feel like I almost wanted to see a bit more of like reverted Poe now that he's back home. But and then of course we have one of my favorite scenes in the movie where she is in Kylo's quarters and he is where she's just been on Kijimi in like that sort of stair area. And I love it that they are continuing to like establish that these objects that are getting interacted with by them are like appearing in both of their scenarios. I love the shot where it starts and he is on, you know, the Kijimi thing, and then as it pans, she is on Ren's ship. What is his ship called? His destroyer.
I mean, previously I believe he was on the finalizer. I don't know if that's
there was the finalizer and the supremacy, but it's not important. Yeah. But you know, she's like in his room, and it glides in like one clean shot from one to the other, and I think that the cinematography in that scene is gorgeous, and I think it is so cool how the reason that he finds her is because they accidentally bump Vader's mask and it slams onto the snow next to him, and he's like, oh, okay, I see. I love how it's continuing to establish the thing that they already established with how he snatched her necklace in Pasana, how they're able to pass objects between one another, and how, you know, ultimately that's going to come to fruition in a beautiful way in Act 3. But I just, you know, I really love that scene in particular and that duel just because there's so much going on in it and like there's so much to look at, and it's just so visually appealing to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I forgot to mention that about the first act too, when they connect and he like sneaks up and is like, gotcha, and he like grabs the necklace and that's how they find her. I thought that was cool how they kind of tied those together. But how about you, Kev?
Yeah, there's just so much going on in this film, but one of my favorite things, particularly in this section, was the dynamic between the team that went out. So, you know, Rey, Poe, and Finn, and C-3PO. Poor C-3PO. My guy was all like, you didn't mention me, sir, but I'm okay. You know, like he just wanted to feel like a part of the team more than I think he ever has in the whole saga. And they were just like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's just wipe his mind. And I just felt like they treated him like a thing, which, yeah, okay. Anyway, and they played it for laughs. My heart broke for a droid for the first time. Okay, yeah, no, it's not the first time for a droid. I won't go into all the droids that tugged at my heartstrings, but just poor C-3PO. But just the dynamic of, I didn't love. I don't know if we're going to talk about the whole Spice Runner thing or not. He had to have some kind of shady background, I think, just to be a parallel to Finn and to Rey in terms of anybody can choose who they're going to be. You're not, well, we're going to talk themes in a moment, but when they start going round robin, like you were a Spice Runner, like you were a Stormtrooper, you were a Spice Runner, you were a Scavenger, we can do this all night. Like, I love it. I just love the whole dynamic between the team and the trust that they've got in each other and just the camaraderie. We needed that. We really needed to see that again because we hadn't seen that really that much of a team, I think, since Return of the Jedi in terms of timeline.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
I loved the back and forth, like you were talking about with the force timing and the objects. At first, it was like, oh, how could they do that? And then, you know, it's supposed to click that in each of these films, they really did set up the next film for making that ability a thing. So, like with the you could tell they were connected in the first film, and in TLJ, then they were definitely talking and at one point touched, and then in this film, suddenly they've expanded on that even more as their dyad grows. And so, thought this is cool. This is new stuff. It's not just regurgitated story like some people seem to think it is. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I especially love because the very first time it happens, Kylo Ren breaks down what's happening. He's like, "Huh, what's going?" First of all, why are you here? Where
Right.
are you? He says, "I can see you, but I can't see your background."
He's being real practical.
Can you see
Like,
mine?
what's going on here? He's trying to analyze it, right? But then his hand is wet too, because she was where it was wet, and he was on that ship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So they
super
set
cool
that
how
up.
they like really set up a lot of this stuff.
Oh, but they didn't plan anything. No, anyway, we won't go there.
But yeah, your thoughts on it, Sawyer?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say I love 3PO in this movie. Like, yeah, it's sad that his memory is wiped, but it's such a beautiful moment that R2 always has his memory stored. So, in the event that this ever happens, and I really, really liked his arc throughout this film, and I really do think that Anthony Daniels, sorry, was at his like best comedic moments as C3PO in this movie, or some of them, for sure. And I think we were missing that in the last two films. We did get like, I bet you didn't notice my red arm, but besides that, we didn't get 3PO, and so I really, really, really loved that part of this movie. Was not crazy about Finn's right, I never told you. That
Yeah.
could have just not been there. I mean, I think it's really cool that Finn's force sensitive, and if they were going to pursue that more, they should have done it way before. And that was the wrong place and the wrong time for that conversation to have happened. But on a different note, Rey and Kylo, I mean, anything that has to do with Rey and Kylo, I love pretty much. But the moment when she slices his TIE fighter down is just so cool. And it just reinforces that this is not it's not him like going after her. Like, no, this is very much a two-person thing. They're bonded. And every moment of this, I would say, kind of alludes to what ends up happening in the end, but they really amped it up. Their I don't want to say relationship, but like connection and what that meant for them in the Force. Even from the beginning of the movie, where his emotions are affecting her so much that she fails her training course, or she almost, she doesn't perform as well as she wanted to. And I just, that moment when she jumps on the TIE, I know we'd seen it before in the trailer, but just watching that, seeing where it was placed in the movie, I just thought that was so cool. And then Kajimi, I really liked that whole segment. We can't forget about Babu Frick, of course. He's cute and silly.
Hey.
But I mean, yeah, I didn't, again, Carrie Russell to me was kind of what, Zori was kind of a DJ character for me, where she didn't need to be in the story, I don't think, but I didn't dislike her necessarily, and it was kind of, I did like that they gave Poe an interesting background. I don't know, I agree with Kevin that I don't know that I would have gone with the Spice Runner thing specifically, but I do think it makes sense that he maybe got into some trouble, like, had a bad boy phase and then went back to the Resistance. But overall, I mean, and then of course we have Rey starting to figure out that, on her own, with the occasional prompt from Kylo, of course, but she's starting to figure out that this whole thing actually really does have everything to do with her. Whereas in The Force Awakens, she's like, this doesn't have anything to do with me. I don't want, no. But this whole movie, she's slowly picking up these hints, and she's like, oh my God, I know this ship. I know this dagger. Like, very cool.
And just
also, I wanted to say real quick on the topic of Finn being Force sensitive, I didn't get that both times I saw it in the theater. I don't know if that's me being dense or what, but it wasn't until J.J. Abrams came out and said it. I regarded it as a plot hole. I was like, why did they start this and not finish it? That's so dumb. Apparently they did, and I was too focused on other things.
I mean, it is funny because but as I've been like doing the podcast and going back, there's so many more elements that show that he's force sensitive throughout the previous movies, but it's never the focal part. But like when you first see him and Kylo Ren look at each other, and like they're sensing something, there is something there, and like when Starkiller Base destroys the planet, Finn feels it. Like it shows Finn stop and look, and you're like, what is he looking at? But I don't know, it's interesting. I wouldn't have done it that way, but that's perfectly okay. And also, just a side topic, the aesthetic of like the red berries spilling into his white room, I don't know, it was just beautiful.
That was really cool.
That whole scene is just, it's like that's their last force bond, right? Before he comes to find her on
technically
Masada.
I think that I don't think that they're physically looking at each other when he's getting beaten up by the... She passes it through the force bond. I think that
they look at each other
connects.
Though, right? So they give each other a look that nobody else can see. It's like
their last force time.
No. I think that is a forced time, because I think he's surrounded on all sides by the Knights of Ren, and she's like facing Palpatine. So, and he's way over there. So I think they are having a forced time when that happens.
No. I just mean like they're literally fighting each other. Like it's the last
until the end.
Apart,
yeah.
And it's certainly the last one with Kylo Ren. Because the next one is with Ben Solo. So. All right, and. Sorry, there's a lot of points I do want to dig into, but we will get back to them because I just want to make sure we hit all the different parts of the story first. But yeah, I mean, so I ended this here on the second act, right? This goes all the way up until Leia's death. So I guess I'll also kind of do a lightning round so we can all comment on that briefly. But I also really enjoyed their fight. You know what I mean? We get that this whole thing is starting because Rey has the vision of herself and Kylo Ren on the throne, on the Sith throne that Palpatine is on. That happens at the very beginning of the movie. And I feel like it kind of gets glossed over a lot because Anakin's fault was, you know, seeing Padme die, and was motivated to do anything to prevent that from happening. Rey's having a similar journey where she has this vision, and she's doing everything she can to prevent that from happening, and she's like actually afraid of herself, and everything that she's done ends up bringing her to that throne. It's an interesting like parallel between the two characters, I think. But yeah, their last fight on the your TikTok, Hannah, is something I did think about is that a foot or a hand? Like when you watch the scene where the Wayfinder goes sliding across the floor, it looks like a foot juts out and stops it and then wraps around it and then lifts it up, and you're like, what the hell is happening? So
it's force foot.
I don't know, that part just always makes me happy. And we also got the glimpse of Dark Rey, so that's her also feeling of what she could become. By the way, Dark Rey aesthetic is it's on point. Just saying.
Her lightsaber is the way that she like whips it open. Every time I watch it, and there's like a tiny little beat drop when she does it, gives me tingles.
But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy this act. There's just certain parts where if it's me, I'm maybe making there one less planet that they have to go through so that we can spend more time with the characters. But that's mostly a JJ thing, where a lot of times people are trying to talk and then someone runs in and interrupts it, and then there's more action, and so the thing actually doesn't happen, you know? But yeah, I mean, we have that moment where our princess lays down and dies. We knew it was coming. It happened. So lightning round, how did it hit all of us? And we'll go to Sawyer first.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, we all knew it was gonna happen. I think they did a phenomenal job incorporating her into the story with what they had to work with. I was very impressed by that, and I didn't feel like it was in any way offensive to Carrie Fisher or to the character. I I don't know that I would have written it that way, necessarily. Um, but I do think the intent and the purpose that it served was, I hate to say correct, but like it that was the push. I don't think there could have been a better push for Ben to come back to the light side. And I think um kind of their interaction in The Last Jedi kind of set that up a little bit. His hesitance to attack when he senses her, when he feels her. So, yeah, no, I do think it was a beautiful moment. I think even more beautiful was the memory of Han he has shortly afterwards. Um, but yeah, both his parents kind of encouraging him to come back to the light side. So, um, I think obviously it was one of those things where it might not have happened had Carrie Fisher not passed so unexpectedly. But I think that it served a very important and beautiful purpose.
Yeah. Hannah?
Every time that I watch it, I just think about like what could have been. Like there was a interview, I believe, with J.J. Abrams, where they said, The Force Awakens was Harrison Ford's movie, The Last Jedi was Mark Hamill's movie, Rise of Skywalker was supposed to be Carrie Fisher's movie, and that, I can't help but wonder if they had an actress instead of little snippets to work with, what could they have done? And it is really sad to see like that that I guess the Leia and Ben thing doesn't amount to this like heartbreaking finale the way that I thought it would. But at the same time, I think it does serve its purpose. It is a little confusing the first time you see it. Just a tiny, tiny bit where it's like, wait, is she doing the Luke Skywalker force projector? Is she what's happening exactly here? At least that's what I was a little tripped up by in the first instant. And then right after it, Rey stabs Ben in the gut, which honestly I did not see coming whatsoever. When he drops the lightsaber, she grabs it and immediately stabs him. That to me is equal Dark Rey to shooting Chewbacca, because he is clearly given up on the fight. He's distracted by something else. She leaps at the chance to go and kill him, and she goes to kill him. And it's not until she realizes why he stopped fighting and how he's sort of rethinking his life that she regrets it. And then I think she starts to like panic and feel like, oh my god, like what have I done? But I remember when we were watching that moment in the theater and she stabbed Ben, Sawyer said, it like goes very quiet, and Sawyer was like, is this how it ends? Is that it? Are you serious?
It was almost 2 hours in at that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
I have no memory of this, but
oh, you absolutely said it. And I remember specifically whispering, I was like, no, it can't. They set up the healing thing. She's gonna heal him. Like, I remember that. I was like, no, wait, hold on. And she did. And I was like, woo, okay. That was a roller coaster. But no, I think that it is just, it's a total emotional roller coaster, that bit where it's like, Leia died. Wait, Rey's killing him. Wait, she's saving him. Wait, she's saying, like, there could have been something between us. And now Han is here and I'm bawling. So that moment in the film, that like little chunk of scenes, and I think there's something that breaks up Ben and Han and Rey ditching him on the ruins of the Death Star. There is a scene in between there, and I can't think of what exactly it is at this moment. But that is the chunk of the movie that is hardest for me to watch, because it's just so emotionally charged.
Oh. And how about you, Kev?
So that whole thing, the first time with Han, we're all like, "What is happening right now?" And one of my first thoughts was, "Oh, maybe Leia is force projecting Han." So I'm thinking in my head, probably if they had had Carrie Fisher, they would have filmed her, talking to Ben. A lot of people talked about, it would have been better to have Anakin in that scene. And while I think that it would have been really cool to have him there, but those of us who have been through this saga for years and have enjoyed it and through the Clone Wars and everything would have understood that they didn't set that up at all in the trilogy. So it would have been really weird to just suddenly Anakin's Force Ghost show up and talk to Ben. So I did love how they handled it. It's like we're actually watching someone deal with their grief and in real time, like on camera. A lot of times, characters in a movie just, unless it's a psychological type thriller where you're hearing their thoughts all the time, you don't really get to see that thing sort of play out. But you can also compare it to all the times in the different temples or on Dagobah or whatever, where people see force projections like Rey, Dark Rey, not even there. Just part in her head, part the force. But Ben had to deal with that pain in all three films. He says, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it." And well, in the second one, he didn't say the last part because he was so overconfident in TLJ at that moment. But here, it's like he's so sad that his mom died and how he left his dad. But the way Rey heals his face, and it's like because of Leia. I know we're supposed to be talking about Leia, but this whole thing is connected, right? And she legit lost the fight. A lot of people miss this. Like, yeah, she stabbed him because she saw an opportunity and she just took it because she was done. He was about to go in for the kill or something. Like, it's the first time I thought, oh, he's actually going to kill her. And then he just stops because Leia had reached out. We've got Maz Kanata playing narrator for all that, which I thought was helpful. So she is explained to BB-8, I think, she knows what must be done. And so the audience can kind of follow along with it, right? So that whole thing is just an emotional roller coaster, all those things back and forth. And the symmetry of it with The Force Awakens is just incredible to me.
Yeah. No, I do agree about the Han thing, because I was thrown for a loop first, and my first thought did go to I did wish Anakin was here, but then again they would have had to set up a lot more. And also, this whole movie is about legacies, right? And in The Last Jedi, Snoke, he's doing everything he can to emulate Vader and become the ultimate Skywalker, but he fails. And what does Snoke say? You have too much of your father's heart, right? The thing that pulled him out wasn't Skywalker; it was the Solo part of him. And so I did love seeing that the Solo part, his dad's heart, is what comes to him, and the symmetry with The Force Awakens. I did think that was cool. See, this is why I like talking to you, because now I'm seeing these other things that are just hammering good things into.
One more thing I'd like to throw in there, Brandon. So there's that part in the book where Leia is going through, it's this part in the story where she wants to reach out one more time to try to reach Ben. And she decides that, she's, Leia, Organa, Skywalker, Solo. I didn't get those in the right order, but, those three legacies. And she then says, her Skywalker legacy would go to Rey, her Organa legacy to Poe, and her Solo legacy, she would try one more time to give that to Ben. And in a sense, somebody's mentioned their headcanon over here about, maybe that's partly, Leia's energy kind of helping to project Han in that moment. It is his Solo legacy right there. And he's starting to, and then he's just pure Han Solo the rest of the film, even though he doesn't say a lot. He shrugs, he shoots people without looking. He totally takes on a lot of his dad's persona right there. And I just thought that was awesome. I wish we could have seen that in the film, but obviously they couldn't film her saying those things without the actress.
Yeah, absolutely. I left Element 7 in the chat. It said alternate ending. They just keep healing each other back and forth.
I wondered if that was going to happen. But
somebody does an art series of that. It's called Dyad Doodles, and it's like a alternate universe where they at the very end of The Rise of Skywalker, she realizes he's dying and she's like, no, I'm going to put my life force back into you. And they just have to keep their hands on each other's arm or something.
Perpetual engine, right? Perpetual energy.
Yeah, perpetual motion machine.
Yep.
It's basically the exact opposite ending of The Departed, essentially. If you guys ever saw that movie. Anyways.
Could have been a ooh, what you say, have that playing in the background. Play it in reverse.
What the heck? Okay, sorry, my scene got off, and anyways, I had to fix the stream. But yeah, I mean, so let's jump into that final act though, which is after Rey. I feel like you guys said she loses control of herself again when she stabs Ben, and after what she's done, she's like, okay, I can't do this. I can't trust myself. She is having this constant battle pulling yourself to the dark. And I also think it kind of echoes with what was said in Empire Strikes Back when Yoda is explaining the dark side to Luke, right? The dark side, it's like quick into a fight, and all the stuff, and it explains Rey a lot. And she's like, okay, I just need to take myself off the board, and runs and tries to exile herself. So yeah, I mean,
I'm doing what you did, which is exactly why Luke did it, because his mentors both did it. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. you do what you learn.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, we got that all the way through the end of the film. So what jumps out at you guys? And we'll start with Jacob.
Oh, through the end of the film, what jumps out at me? At that point, right, so much of it is, well, it's like all these films. The third film is always the hardest to wrap up, right? So much going on. But then you've got now the fight in the Emperor's, Sith Cathedral or whatever, and then you've got the fight in the air. And we were talking about Zori earlier. One function that Zori does serve in this film is she's the first one that says there are more of us. And then later on, you hear Lando echo that again. So there's a lot of symmetry of lines throughout these films, like echoes and allusions. And you kind of see these moments where Poe is starting to build his hope back up. And he believes at that point, partly because of her pep talk, that yes, people will come. And because of Luke's sacrifice in The Last Jedi, the people do come. And that moment was awesome, where all those ships showed up. And, look at this. There are more of us, Poe, more of us. I loved all of that. The sky beam kind of set me off. I was like, I didn't need the sky beam. We've seen that. Suicide Squad did it best, of course. I'm joking about that. But but then I had to think through it. I try not to just let one thing totally ruin my movie experience, right? So at the end, it didn't bother me. I thought, how else are they going to top everything we've seen in the Skywalker saga? Like, they can't just leave on a little fizzle. Oh, the Emperor's dead. Let's all go party. Shawarma. That's not the way it's going to work out. So they had to make it as big as they could. All the ships, 1,000-fold, increase in the military of the First Order.
I think that the Skybeam actually spoke to like the power of Rey and Kylo's bond that he had absorbed more than anything, more than like, how does he suddenly have this power? It's like, no, he suddenly is mega charged because there is something crazy going on between Rey and Kylo.
I don't think I ever thought of that. That's good, Hannah.
I like that. It's kind of like Iron Man when he got hit by Thor's lightning the first time. Like,
power at 400%, sir. How about that? Yeah.
No, I love it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have more?
Who, me?
Yeah.
So the ending, I thought was everything about it. I thought was fantastic. I loved seeing Red 5. Like, that's my favorite ship in Star Wars. That particular X-wing. It's my favorite Lego Star Wars thing that I've got. And so when they called it Red 5, like, we see Red 5, Rey's alive. It was awesome. Yeah. Of course, now we've seen it in The Mandalorian. Oh, so good. Yeah. So anyway, yep, love it.
Awesome. How about you, sir?
Am I gone?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with this part for a very obvious reason. um, I really do enjoy the Battle of Exegol. I think that in the sky, what we've got going on there, you know, it's such an incredible moment when everyone shows up to save the day or to help the resistance take out all these Star Destroyers. I think it's amazing. And terrifying that all of the Star Destroyers have the same power that the Death Star and the Starkiller Base had. Like, that is, it makes sense to me, and it's also like, it's just awesome. And yeah, I mean, I feel like they did a really great job setting it up so that it really seemed like things were not going to work out for the resistance, which obviously Star Wars cannot end that way, but I really did enjoy that final battle. And of course we have Rey confronting her grandfather, and you know, she has this moment where she thinks that she has no choice but to, you know, kill him and take over his mantle. And you know, at the time she's so overwhelmed with all of these emotions that she doesn't even realize that Ben's on his way. And just that look on her face when she realizes that he's come to help her and that the dyad is finally together fighting on the same side, which is something that I think they've both wanted for so long. It's just an awesome scene when she gives him the lightsaber and the little shrug that he does. I love me some Ben Solo. But yeah, no, I mean, and then people have problems with the I'm all the Jedi, but I, you know, I do like it. You know, Luke tells her, you know, 1,000 generations live in you now. That is what we see. We see all of these people, some of whom we aren't sure are confirmed to be dead, coming together. You know what? It kind of reminds me just a little bit of what happens in Light of the Jedi when all of the Jedi everywhere, including Yoda, who's planets and systems away, can feel Avar Kriss like calling upon her fellow Jedi. It feels like that. And you know, I just think it was a really awesome way to finally get rid of Palpatine forever. And then we have Ben, you know, Palpatine's like, okay, so shall fall the last Skywalker, and he gets back up and he goes to save his girl. And this is where my dyad and I have to disagree. I do not like that Ben died, and that's not just a selfish reason. That, you know, if you know me, I love Reylo more than anything. It is like my crutch. I'm all about the Reylo. I personally think that this story was, you know, a large part of the sequels are about this the dyad. Rey and Kylo, they're both trying to find themselves. One is light, one is dark, and we've never seen anything. Well, I mean, we have, but not in canon. We've never seen anything like this before, and I think at the end, I really do think that they deserved that happiness together. I think that ending, yeah, I guess it makes sense that the main villain has to die, you know, to sacrifice, to redeem himself, just like Vader did. He did finish what he started, but to me, I just feel like because, you know, there was so much emphasis on how important the dyad is and how unique and special it is, and how they literally could not get to where they both needed to be without each other. I wasn't crazy about it. I felt like Ben deserved a second chance. And then we got the very end of the film, and I don't like that she says Rey Skywalker. I have no problems with it. You know, I accept it. That is what's canon. But it just felt like kind of forced. Like, I understand that, you know, she found her family finally, and that makes perfect sense. And it is, you know, beautiful in a sense that she was able to find it. But I don't know. I feel like she could be their family without being Rey Skywalker, like, in name. And that sets her. I feel like it would have set her off on whatever her next journey is without, I don't know. Like it wasn't my favorite, but I won't not acknowledge it.
No, totally fair. I mean, where do you? I mean, sounds like you're in the opposite camp, Hannah. So let's hear it.
Yes. So first I want to talk about the I am all the Jedi thing. I am all the Jedi. I like to theorize, in what capacity are they helping her? Are they actually like all lending a hand on her shoulder through the Force? Are they just hyping her up? Is it just that she finally feels fully connected with the Jedi legacy? I think it's the latter. But the part that makes me really, really interested is I am all the Sith. I think that could be a really cool catalyst for a canon explanation for the rule of two. I think that it could be like, I haven't, to preface, I'm not like very versed in Darth Bane and the Legends explanation for the rule of two and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know what the Legends alternative is. However, in my book, the reason that the rule of two exists based on the rise of Skywalker is because they are genuinely passing power between one another to keep themselves at a certain level of power. If there's too many of them, it gets spread too thin. They're passing on like all this, I guess, sort of energy from one to another through some sort of Sith thing. I don't know if that's substantiated by anything else, but I would love to see that explored in Acolyte. I think that could be really cool. And it brings this whole new light to people like me who haven't really gotten into Legends to, why are there only two Sith? It's just customary? Like, what's going on? I think that it expands the world in a really cool way, and I would love to see the I am all the Sith mentality explored in Acolyte and in other similar media. But moving on from that, yes, Sawyer and I, we don't disagree on a lot of Star Wars things. We totally disagree on Ben's death. Could you ask for any better ending for your ship than Romeo and Juliet? Oh my God, I love it.
Yes, you can ask for a better ending. It's when they both live!
No, but here's the thing. I am a sucker for some angst and for some, some tragedy. I think it is so beautiful that he gave his entire being, body, and soul for her. I could not ask for anything more from their connection. I genuinely fluff. Honestly, this is my thing with like relationships in media. When it's fluffy and when it's happy, I simply lose interest. It's why I wasn't really into Rey and Finn being together. There's no conflict there. There's no uphill battle. There's no drama in that. It's their best friends and they would be dating each other and they would be a lovely, healthy couple. But why do I want to watch it? Why do I want to watch Aang and Katara get together? They're best friends. They're a lovely, happy couple. I want to see her, get with Zuko. Like, I have like this thing where there has to be an uphill battle. There has to be drama. There's got to be tragedy. I am an absolute junkie for that kind of thing. And, I have my opinions on Romeo and Juliet. I don't think it's necessarily a love story first and foremost, but I do think that tragedy is just beautiful and like iconic.
All right, so now I have to ask the chat, like, whose camp are you guys, Team Sawyer or Team Hannah? Please throw it in the chat. It looks like Harith is 100% on Hannah's side, but I'm curious on the overall feelings of it. But also, no, you're dead right. It is confirmed in canon that part of the reason is basically an attempt to create a dyad, a dark side dyad that was never really successful. I mean, it was partially successful, but it was never a true dyad like they have. So, personally, I have to say, I mean, I had walked into the theater accepting that he was going to die, and that this family, this legacy, the Skywalkers, they came from the Force, and they would at some point have to return to the Force. And I actually think it wraps up the stories kind of perfectly that he died. And okay, so hear me out, right? Ben finally got to make really the first decision ever. Because everyone has always had these like expectations on him. He has all these legacies of all these different people around him, and this was the first time he really got to be Ben, and he realizes, like, you know, he had been being manipulated. This is partly from reading the novelization of it, where when Leia dies, he realizes, wow, I've been being manipulated this whole time. You know, Snoke, you know, or Palpatine's in his head, always telling him that, you know, these families are holding him back, that, you know, none of them actually love him. They just have these expectations of him, and, you know, and he realizes, no, everyone really did. Like, she gave her life to save me, and everyone is always, all these people are just giving to him. And so he finally realizes it too late, because now he's alone, and there's only one person that cares, and she's going to die. And so he gives her, you know, his life force instead. And so that wraps up his story, and it's sad to have her go off alone. But if you are a sucker for the hero's journey, when she goes to Tatooine and puts the sabers in the ground, that is the return, right? The hero returns to, now I know she's not returning to Jakku, but she's returning to a desert planet. She never wanted to leave. She never wanted to do anything, right? Because she wanted to wait for her family. At this point, she's accepted a new family. She's still alone, but she's no longer afraid to move on. She's back where she started. She's in the same position, but she's what has changed. And so I kind of appreciated the symmetry of that, of a proper end to the hero's journey. And on top of that, I mean, there's more. I can keep going, but I don't love the
I want to say, though, people are really upset. I don't know if it's ironically or what, that Anakin's lightsaber got buried in sand because he doesn't like sand. One, dumb. Two, his lightsaber is buried next to Shmi Skywalker, yeah. What, the person who he cared about most in the world. I can't, like, I know that a lot of the time it's for the meme. I can't understand.
Get emotional about it, though.
I do get upset about it, because Finn could have used the lightsaber at least for training purposes or whatever. But then again, we don't know exactly what's the time jump here. You know, maybe Finn has already created his own or whatever. But I don't know. It feels like a waste. Like, Luke got a jump on things because he was handed Anakin's lightsaber, and like that's.
I hope she took the crystals. She harvested the kyber crystals and just buried the hilts, because those are few and far between. Like, Ilum is gone. You blew it up, Rey. So, like, what, you know, these are a rare resource, and I appreciate that there is some honor in burying this crystal that has, like, a connection that bonded to Anakin and was formed with him, that bonded to Leia and was formed with her, and, you know, thus laying their crystals to rest is putting, like, a little piece of their soul to rest. But also, like, there can only be so many kyber crystals that are accessible at this point. Like, it does feel like, you know, that's a resource.
No, it is very true. But, you know, we do know that's not the only place you can get it, you know, places.
But Christophsis is torched earth, isn't it? Scorched earth.
Yes, but all the places that we have seen people get lightsaber crystals have been virginses in the Force, right? So it stands to reason that maybe the virginses more will appear in those locations, right? Like Ezra got his on Lothal in the temple, which is Force Virgins, and you never know, But Jacob, your thoughts on Rey Skywalker?
I love it. I was so just enamored with that because my empathy for that character, like, because I'm old enough to be her dad, like I wanted to go rescue her from the first movie. Like, we need this, this girl needs a family. Like, it was just heartbreaking to me to think about growing up with nobody and having to fight for your life. I mean, my childhood was rough enough as it was, and I had parents who loved me. So like my heart just broke for Rey. And then by the time it came full circle to now she has somebody, like this family accepted her. So she accepts that she's accepted at this point, like with that name. But there's more to it than just her connection to the Skywalker legacy. That's a big part. I mean, that's a lot of people in my comments are like, you can't adopt adults or whatever. First of all, it's faking in space, kids. But secondly, yes, you absolutely can adopt adults in at least the United States. I don't know about every country's laws, but the main purpose you would do that would be like a stepchild or a foster kid that you want to actually will your inheritance to. So it's a legacy thing.
Also, I'm sorry. I was going to say, and also that there, it doesn't have to be legal. Chosen family and found family is not something that is a science fiction trope. If you doubt the importance of chosen family and like giving yourself a name that unifies you with other people who also don't have a family, I encourage you to watch Pose. It's an amazing show. It's on Netflix. And it's about all of these transgender women who have been sort of ousted from their own families, and they form like houses and families, and they come up with their own last names and they stick together. And it's absolutely beautiful, and it really, I feel like that's the missing piece for a lot of people who don't accept that Rey could possibly be a Skywalker.
Yeah, is that trope, right? Like they need
exactly
to their repertoire, I think, of books and movies and things that they're looking at and shows like you're talking about. So, so there's that part of it, but then there's also the name Skywalker is what brought hope to the whole galaxy. Like Luke Skywalker going out and sacrificing himself, facing down the whole First Order with a laser sword, and the legend grew immediately from there. So we saw Broom Boy and his buddies, Tamiri Black and others like Luke Skywalker, and the whole legend grew. So that name is still famous throughout the galaxy. So that's another part of it. But also, and you kind of see it when Palpatine's talking about, so falls the last Skywalker. And she's thinking, okay, my family, my biological family, has been tormenting the Skywalkers for generations since the beginning of that clan. And it's a way to honor that she brought justice to the Skywalkers by ending Palpatine and just killing off his legacy. And I think that anthropologists ought to do, and sociologists ought to do a study on this generation, like how much they don't understand how family names work, and everything's not about DNA. And Luke literally says, Rey, some things are stronger than blood. Like all the clues are there. That the family you choose is more important than your just biological family. That doesn't mean your biological family isn't important. If you choose to stay with them, that's the family you choose. Like you get that choice as you grow up. Anyway, that whole thing. So there are those three reasons that I think it's just incredible that now that's her name. I also think, and like some of the people in the chat, friends of ours, that maybe that's the new name for the Jedi Order going forward. Who knows? Like they just haven't explored that, but it could be the Skywalker Order. Or because that legacy, like they're the ones, there's not only were they tortured forever and tormented, but so much tragedy, but they also are the ones that ultimately brought hope for generations too. Like part of the time Anakin was a hero, and then at the end he was a hero, and then Luke, and now Rey, and of course Leia. So.
Yeah,
people are like, oh, he kissed his cousin. Like, no, actually adopted sister, but it's not as weird as twins kissing, okay? They're not biologically related. Sorry, I had to go there.
I mean, I feel like those are the same people that make the step bro jokes. So, it's a whole thing. But for me, I didn't like it when she said that at the end. I thought it was stupid until I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I loved that part because they." Being part of the LGBTQ community, I think I butchered that. I apologize, but being part of that community, it ended up being kind of ousted from their family and had to do the same thing. Had found family, and felt that was really powerful. And I'm like, oh, huh. My life circumstances have never put me in a place where this would mean something to me, so that's why I didn't pick up on it. But the fact that it can mean so much to other people is beautiful, and I appreciate that that's getting some light. There's just a lot of things that you never think about because it's nothing related to you.
I've talked to a lot of people who are adopted or have adopted, and everybody so far that I've talked to in that situation absolutely loved it. And then some have told me that as far back as Leia, that they've had a hero in Star Wars since the first film. Well, not since the first film, I guess since Return of the Jedi, when they learned that, oh, she was adopted by the Organas. And then, so now there's this major hero in the Star Wars franchise that adopted people identify with. That never occurred to me because that wasn't my story. But now that I hear other people's stories, that's why I think it's so important to listen to other people as you go through life.
Yeah. But I mean, and I also agree with what you said earlier, where I think the most important reason for it is bringing hope to the galaxy. That's Luke, Luke's sacrifice in The Last Jedi is what made the difference. In The Last Jedi, no ships showed up because there was no hope. No one had hope in the galaxy. Luke brought that back. We see little kids who even say Luke Skywalker. To know that you are being protected by another Skywalker is going to be really helpful for the galaxy moving forward. So I know I grew to appreciate it, even though it's still not quite my favorite thing. But yeah, okay. So we kind of ran through the whole film. Let me see where we are with time. All right, so let's go to where we are going to talk about the themes of the film, and I'm curious what you guys come up with. And I'm sorry, Jacob, since your camera turned off, it shifted these around, so my order's messed up. So I'll just start with you.
Sorry, I was typing in the chat. Start with me. What was the premise?
Oh yeah, I mean, so we'll talk about let's talk about the overall themes of the film.
Overall themes.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, of course, it's tied up into the themes of the characters, right? Particularly Rey and Ben. But in this film, so many of the characters, I'll step back one film. Last Jedi, everybody failed. That's the theme. Everybody sucks at what they do. They failed, and they're supposed to learn from it. Every single major character failed. Even Leia failed because she gave up hope at the end. And Leia is hope. Like, that's her one word in Rogue One. I mean, she's hope, but in The Last Jedi, she gave up. She said, there's no more hope in the galaxy. So that's that film. This film, it's okay. I had this, whatever happened in my past that's trying to tell me to be this person, and screw that. I can be who I want to be. I can be who I think is the most important person to be. Even Ben, because Ben, his whole life, all these different people have been saying, this is who you are. This is your legacy. And he just felt like completely weighed down by that legacy. Rey, as she's learning, I'm nobody. Oh, actually, but here's why I'm nobody. And am I going to be tied to this? Poe with the Spice Runner thing. Again, it could have been something else, but Finn as a stormtrooper, they all chose to be different people than who the universe seemed to be forcing upon them to be. And I love that. I love that they chose their destiny. That's a big theme for me.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with Luke as well. I mean, even Luke's mentors were like, we need you to kill that guy. And
didn't even tell him who he was to him.
And that's why Yoda wanted to die from embarrassment. He's like, the guy I was gonna kill turned out to be my dad. So what's up with that? And he's like, oh, yeah, sleep, forever sleep. story themes?
Goodness. That's a tough question. I feel like I'm in a literature class and I have nothing good to contribute. Gosh. I mean, I think found family is a huge theme here. And I mean, we've already done a lot of talking about that already, but I think this was, sorry boys, this was Ray's story. And you know, from the beginning, she is just trying to find her place in all this, and by the very end, she finally has her place, and she had to go through all of these things as a hero does, but you know, so much of her journey was thinking she found an answer and then only finding out that that wasn't true. And even when she found out the true answer, which was who she was related to, that wasn't the answer either. She had to go all the way to Exegol and defeat Palpatine, and you know, to realize that she's Rey and her family was right there beside her all along. Gosh, I mean, I also think at the same time, it's very much Ben's story as well, and I think he kind of experiences a certain level of found family too. He just has a different way to get there, because he's been trying to, he thinks he knows the answer, and has for the entire time until that moment on Kaf Bir, where, you know, Leia has just passed and he realizes that he's, you know, been away from his true family for all this time. Yeah, and gosh, I feel like I should say something really intelligent, and it's not coming.
No worries. We can always come back too. Like it's not a one and done. You know, we can. Well, we're talking, we're vibing, and I'm sure more will come up. But you know, you also, I know you're saving some of the good stuff because we're gonna talk Rey and Ben next. So
yeah.
how about you on the themes, Hannah?
Yeah, I think the same thing that Jake have said, that it's about choice and autonomy. To me, I think that is the best possible theme that they could have finished their saga on, because I think that what Star Wars does is it gives you all of these stories and all of these messages and all of these people and their journeys, and The Rise of Skywalker lays them all out and then puts in the theme, okay, what are you going to do with this? You know, like, it's up to you now. It's in your hands now. You are I mean, I know that people are going to be mad if I say this. Rey is the catalyst for you in this story. She is the surrogate for the audience. She is you. You are being given, you know, all of these stories, all of these legacies, all of these things to live by. What are you going to do with it? What is Rey going to do with it? You can be a Skywalker too. What are you going to do with that? And it really places the power back in the hands of the audience. And it puts forth this message of, like, you can choose to be what you were born as. That's fine. Like, in terms of your path in life, you can choose to be something completely different. Maybe that choice is going to be a bad one. Maybe that choice is going to be a good one. You have to figure it out. And I think that is really, it's a lot of what Star Wars is about, because, you know, the dark side is a choice. The remaining on the light side is also a choice. I feel like that is just, it's an overarching theme, and I think that The Rise of Skywalker really nicely brings it to a head in those, like, very tangible ways of, is Ben going to choose to redeem himself, or is he going to, you know, free of influence now? Is he going to be Ben, or is he going to be Kylo? Rey, is she going to choose this, like, family that she's been aching for, or is she going to choose to forge her own path? And everyone essentially chooses to shed those, like, influences on them that they've had for so long. Rey, the influence of I need a family to matter, and Ben, the influence of Snoke Palpatine being in his head. And I think that that actually is really nicely encapsulated by the Legion of Stormtroopers on the that assists them getting to the wreckage of the Death Star, and Janna, and how those were stormtroopers and they all made a choice and they decided that they were going to lay down their weapons and not fight. I think that it really is a very lovely thread that goes throughout the movie. And it all harkens back to like what Leia says to Rey, which is never be afraid of who you are. And that like who you are, I suppose, could mean who you have been or who you are intrinsically, any of those things. You take it and you do what you will with it, but it's up to you ultimately.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch this and listen to that again because that was cool. So we are going to jump into Rey and Ben's journey throughout all of this. But real quick, I did want to address, because there's a lot of misconceptions that I see happening all the time in the community, especially in regard to the sequel trilogy and this movie in particular. And again, just reframing it is, this is my least favorite of the film. That's kind of why we're talking about it, to kind of bring up some of the stuff. But things like for instance, the force healing, there's a common misconception of this is breaking Star Wars because then Anakin could have force healed Padme, right? But it doesn't, for quite a few reasons. One, the ancient text that Rey learned this from, the Jedi didn't have them. Just because it is a force power doesn't mean everyone knows it or has access to it. They physically didn't have the book, but even if he did know it, it wouldn't have saved Padme. Padme had nothing physically wrong with her when she died. So force healing, or giving, what Rey does is give a little bit of her life force. It's not going to do anything to that. Not if she's lost the will to live. Additionally, Anakin wasn't trying to learn force healing. That was never a thing. Like, if it was about healing, then they could have stocked up on Bacta or whatever. Like, there are healers and things. So like that's something that I see. That's something that I see all the time, and I just mention it because I was seeing some of it pop up in the chat. And I want to make sure you guys know, I am reading the chat and I do appreciate it. So it's cool because we stand people of, however much you like certain things or dislike things, it's all welcome. My goal here is to actually explain these things. I kind of missed some of the other ones, but also, it's, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, this is like female empowerment, and why shouldn't we empower females? That's my first question. But more than that, at no point at any part of this trilogy does any woman put down a man for being a man. That never happens. At no point is someone's gender really brought up or relevant in any context in any of these films. So it feels weird when I hear things like that. You even have a conflict with Poe and Holdo, right? Now, if Holdo had said something like, never send a man to do a woman's job or whatever, that'd be irritating. But it just doesn't happen. They just exist, and women can be heroes too. That's why absolutely I stand Jaina Solo forever. She is my queen. She is wonderful. All right. So, anyways, moving forward, we've got Rey and Ben's overall journey. And so I apologize. I am going to throw them together so you guys can talk about both, but mostly because they're so intertwined, as they have very opposite sides taking this journey and end up in the same place largely. Sawyer, what do you got?
A lot. I mean, some of the criticisms about, so often I hear that their kiss at the end was you know, it felt forced. It didn't make any sense. You know, a lot of people like to push, well, it was just gratitude. That's what it says in the novelization. But I don't know, man. I don't kiss my pizza delivery guy.
I mean, I do. Is that not how you tip? Is that...
But no, I mean, like, to me, and I'm not, yeah, I do speak from a place of bias because I wanted that to come to fruition. I wanted them to be in love with each other, but there is a reason that I wanted that. I do think that the films set it up for that to be their ending. Now, again, I don't like that he died. They should be together forever, whatever. But
together forever. Sorry, go ahead.
But no, I mean, I think from the very beginning, like, these seeds are planted, and yeah, I do think that if there had been a little bit more collaboration on the writing front for the 3 films, it would have been a slightly smoother flow to that direction. But I really do think that it was always JJ and Ryan's intention for Rey and Ben to be together, because they quite literally, their souls are intertwined, and that's a unique relationship that we haven't seen before, and we need some kind of romance happening at Star Wars, you know. And I don't care what anybody says, The Last Jedi has those elements. It's always like the middle movie is like the romantic one. It has those elements, and even Mark Hamill said something about it being the most sensual Star Wars film or something. But no, I mean, I could not be happier with the way that this relationship was built, and all credit to Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver for the dedication they put into these characters, especially Adam, because I do say this a lot of the time. I think that Kylo Ren would have been the worst character in Star Wars if Adam Driver hadn't played him. He added so much like beautiful nuance to Ben and did such a great job of telling his story in every look, every, you know, nod of his head, every change in intonation, and you know, he never ever wanted to hurt Rey. He says in this movie, I never lied to you. He never lied to her. He never, you know, he really never, he didn't hurt her. I guess he threw her against a tree when they were fighting as protagonist and antagonist, but for the most part, he thought what he was doing throughout these 3 movies was, you know, helping her so that they could be together. Was he really bad at it? Yes. But his intention was never to harm her in any way. And I think it's so clear, especially with Ben, just how much he cares for her, and is just not good at showing it. And then we have Rey, who, so, you know, this entire series, she is looking for, you know, she wants someone to understand her. She wants someone to, you know, connect with her. Yeah, she's looking for her family, but the one consistent thing that she has in these 3 movies is Ben, and she doesn't like it very much some of the time, but especially in The Last Jedi, you know, you see her realize that he really does know her better than anyone else, and, you know, we see her get really irritated, but then kind of be grateful for it, because she's not alone anymore. Neither of them are, which is the point of The Last Jedi, and then, you know, they take that away. But I don't know, it always made sense to me, and at the end of the day, because there was not such a nice fluidity to the films as there could have been, I wasn't sure how it was going to end up in The Rise of Skywalker. I was not expecting them to kiss or, you know, do anything more than like maybe hug each other. I mean, the redemption arc was pretty obvious to me, but wasn't expecting what I got, and I was pretty satisfied with up until he died. But, and I will die on this hill. There are so many people who have analyzed this scene over and over and over again. Play it backwards. That scene was shot with him getting up, not falling down. Like, there is another ending that they shot. I am fully convinced of this, and I will never not be upset about it. But either way, fine. They had their Romeo and Juliet moment, but I really, I who doesn't love an enemies to lovers trope? I mean, come on, guys. Zutara, anybody? I think Brooke mentioned it earlier. But I don't know. I really, to me, it's the most beautiful love story. Even if it's not, even if you don't see it that way, then it's a different kind of love. It's an appreciation for each other. And I think that Daisy and Adam did such a fantastic job, supporting that narrative.
And both of their performances were just yeah, they're really
Also,
totally stellar.
Also, for anyone, I don't think I feel like your entire chat right now is like, "Boo, Raylo," but apparently recently there was talk of Ray. Some people think she's saying something at that moment, where right after they kiss, and apparently what Daisy was saying was, "No, Ben, no, 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 no," and that's really sad. So I hope that makes you sad.
Why you gotta do that to me? No, but I mean, I like how you bring it up, because people who say that Raylo is toxic or anything like that is kind of missing the mark, because when you're enemies, you're enemies. I've even had that with a former girlfriend, where we were enemies first. I'm not gonna hold her accountable for us not liking each other when we first met. That'd be weird. But more than that, and the novelization puts it beautifully, that she will forever mourn Ben. Never Kylo Ren. She hates Kylo Ren, but she cares for Ben Solo. And seeing that at the very end, that was Ben, that was different. So I think that was interesting. But Hannah, their journeys.
Yes, in terms of their joint journey, oh my god, joint journey, I do wish that we had seen them together a little bit more before he died. And I wish that we had bare minimum a few lines between them with him as Ben. They could have chatted while he was sitting there. But I do really love their separate arcs as well. I think that they're just as strong together as they are separately. I think because Ben's journey here, it does have a lot to do with Rey, but it also has a lot to do with himself and him sort of finding himself. Because I don't think he would have found himself if not for Rey being a catalyst for that. But at the same time, he is struggling with Han's death even before Rey is really part of his life, before the Force bond solidifies and before their minds are actually bridged for the first time. I do believe that he has enough going for him to have been a cool character, even without this phenomenal bond that we have between them. And in terms of Rey, I think that having that relationship with the villain makes her, or anti-villain, makes her 1,000 times more interesting, makes her story so much more interesting. There's so many more layers to it. But that being said, that's not the only thing that's interesting about her. She really is, I would say, consistently struggling with these like dark and light halves of her in the way that, every Star Wars protagonist is expected to, but she brings her own sort of twist to it. She has her own way of handling these things. She has her own way of handling her abandonment issues. And it's just, she grows from like this unwilling to let anyone in. She will not actually, sorry, side note, I was going to say she goes from, not even letting Finn like physically close to her, and when he tries to grab her hand, she's like, absolutely don't touch me. If she was not attracted to Ben, she's not the kind of person who would just kiss someone for kicks. She wouldn't let Finn touch her for a long time. If she had any animosity towards him, and she might have hugged him if it was unromantic, but she definitely would not have kissed him. She is not a touchy person.
She'd be like,
anyway.
Okay, bro, okay.
Anyway, no, she goes from like this very closed off person who's not willing to really let many people in, to this sort of openness to the future and, you know, finding her place, finding her family, which I think is really beautiful. Ben goes from this person who's trying so hard to be what I believe he thinks is a hero. You know, Adam Driver described him as like a religious zealot. He is doing what he thinks is right. He is doing what he thinks he is meant to somebody who is learning to break free from the chains of expectation on both ends of the spectrum and make decisions for himself. I think that they both change so much as characters, and it really does frustrate me when people say that Rey is not a dynamic character, because the girl at the end is absolutely not the same as the girl at the beginning. It is, I think that she is characterized wildly differently. She is much more open and honest about her emotions in Rise of Skywalker. She confesses to Finn that she feels like, though she's found a family, maybe they don't understand her. If that were happening in The Force Awakens, she would have just been like, nothing, go away, and, you know, sat down and like brooded about it. I think that there is so much in terms of like who they are as people that changes. And even though we don't get a ton of shift in like where they are, I guess physically, I mean, obviously they're jumping across the galaxy, but like in terms of, she never goes, there are, I guess, reasons why people say that she doesn't change. Personally, I can't name them off the top of my head because it doesn't make that much sense to me. But, you know, she doesn't have, I guess, the same degree of demeanor shift as like Luke does from, you know, whiny kid in A New Hope to like this very calm, cool, and collected guy confronting and staring down Jabba the Hutt. But, you know, at the same time, there's so much that's happening with her internally that differs from the beginning to the end. And I really think that it's very well executed.
Yeah, and I like that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, because Luke did go from this whiny kid, and his demeanor changed in the last film. What's funny is his change doesn't happen in any of the films. He just shows up and he's different. So I've always kind of thought that was funny, but no, you're absolutely right. I actually had someone mention, you know, they didn't like Rey because she doesn't have a character arc or character growth, and I was like, well, I mean, she does change. She doesn't ever want to leave the home like the same. She's not the same person at the end of the movie as she is in the beginning. And not only that, but her goals have changed. Her wants have changed. Her life trajectory has changed. Like everything. So what is the same? I don't see anything that's the same personally. Although she does wear similar clothing still.
She slides on the little sled down the sandhill. That's the same.
She keeps the same hairdo, which I think is kind of... I have mixed feelings about that, because I know that the reason she was keeping that hairdo in the first place was like, I want to hang on to who I was as a little kid so my parents can still find me. I want to remain recognizable so that my parents will come back. Personally, I think she could have like let her hair down. I know that it's like part of her identity, and it was probably important to the costume designers to maintain that identity, and that like she's still that girl from Jakku. It's just she's different now. But I think that they could have done something different with her costume and hair design.
I mean,
because
it's not exactly the same.
okay,
There are
well,
some significant differences between
but stylistically,
the first one and the third one.
okay, but stylistically, they're visually very similar. And I do wish that maybe it would have aided in those things, those notions that maybe she didn't change as much if they had visually represented it a bit more, the way that they did with Luke, for example, and Anakin, who has wildly different hair in every film. Like there were these concept arts of her wearing like this black jumpsuit and like this long braid, and I don't think that's her at all. But like I feel like they could have represented it physically a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, don't be fooled by the lightsaber I use. I'm still Rey from Jakku. I might write a song about that. And how about your thoughts on their character journeys, Kev?
Well, I have no opinion on the hair. It's just not one of my expertise areas. The overall
That's surprising
journey.
because your hair is beautiful. Look at it.
Well, I appreciate that. I need a haircut. I've had one through the whole COVID thing, and I need to go back desperately. Um, so I love their journey. Like, but I didn't love it until The Rise of Skywalker, until this film. When I first watched The Force Awakens, I thought, oh, okay, here's a interesting, very nostalgic leaning into that film. It didn't seem very deep on detail and plot to me. I didn't, hate it. I liked it. I thought, oh, this is fun, but where's it going to go? Then The Last Jedi, I just loved it. I didn't like Kylo Ren in the first film. I was like, oh, here's this, whiny, like dark version of what Anakin, kind of tried to be. Like, he's trying so hard to be like Anakin. He doesn't even know the guy. He just seemed annoying. But as the characters grew, I grew to appreciate and love them more. And their character arcs were so clear to me as they went through from film to film. Now, part of that, I don't ever try to act like there's any more value to me being a fan because I'm older and have been doing this longer. But sometimes I have some perspective that you can't have at a much younger age. And part of that is I've spent decades now trying to improve myself and grow my own character, have my own character arc and hero's journey. So when I see them go toward the end of the film, I look back at the films and I think that was an incredible journey that they've gone on. And suddenly both Ben and Rey in particular, that like Rey Skywalker, now that she's called that, wasn't my favorite character until the end of The Rise of Skywalker. Like it was always going to be Luke. But in that film, suddenly like her arc just meant so much to me. Now Ben's is flipped from Vader, right? Or I should say Ben and Anakin. Like Anakin, when he becomes Vader, he's just done. He's Vader, period. And he slowly starts to come toward the light. Ben was conflicted from the beginning and started going the other way until he died as Kylo Ren and then was brought back, resurrected by Rey as Ben. And then his transformation was a lot longer than what we got with Anakin, because Anakin was like, no, yeet. And that was his, that was the amount of time we got for his redemption arc. I'm not discounting it because I grew up with it and I've always loved it. I think it's powerful, but we got to see that in Ben more. He got no more lines. He got the exact same number of lines, except, at least Anakin could talk afterward, right? Tell your sister you were right. But I would have loved that too. Like, I think one of you mentioned that. A few lines there, but their story to me is amazing. I could talk for hours and I won't on this podcast. I just love the transformation in the two. Now, the one thing that Rey keeps from the beginning is she's still, well, actually back again, this chipper sort of just scrappy, like confident person. It's not about her gender. It's this kid from Jakku who can fix things and can do things and isn't at all like feeling like she's just going to stop because somebody tells her to stop. A lot of people didn't like Rey. They said she's too perfect. She's too good. The same things they said about Captain America in the MCU. Like, oh, nobody's that good all the time. I don't know that. I like what he said to Tony. It's like, it's not that I don't have a dark side. Maybe you just haven't seen it yet. That was, of course, prelude to Civil War. Mm-hmm. But I can relate to Rey. Like, Rey is one of the characters I relate to the most personally. And again, it has nothing to do with gender, obviously. But the fact that she wanted to try to do the best that she could, and then she ran away at one point. I mean, this is why I also relate to old Luke, because of some of the transformation he went through in The Last Jedi. Like, when you younger folks go through life and you fail and you want to run away, you're going to understand Luke a whole lot more than you do now. And some of you already appreciate him, but some of you may appreciate him more, is all I'm saying, in the future. So Rey Skywalker is all the Jedi. I'll turn it over to you, Brandon.
Awesome. No, I absolutely love it. So now I guess, the next question is, overall, like, how does this fit as the end of a trilogy? How does this fit as the end of a saga? Unpopular opinion, my during my rewatches, because I know I've had some people say that, it was jarring because there was multiple directors and all this stuff. Um, During my rewatches, I feel like this is actually the most cohesive as a trilogy. I think that um, in the prequels, the Phantom Menace is very much an outlier. We don't even the main character is not most who is the main character in that film. But so that's very much an outlier. And as much as I love Return of the Jedi, it's my number 3. I didn't even tell you my top 3 rankings. The Last Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. But Return of the Jedi is also kind of jarring because, like I said, Luke comes back a different person. And there's all this growth and things that happen off screen. In this trilogy, we see all the things that happen on screen. So that's just really interesting. So yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on it as the end of a trilogy, as the end of the saga. Yeah, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? We'll go to Hannah.
I think that some people are not so thrilled that it seems to be like disconnected from the first 6 movies. In that, that's what happens when you got all new characters. There are like legacy characters, obviously, Ben, for example. But people seem to think that like, oh, it's just so like the story was meant to end with Vader. Why are we here? And that's not how universes work. Of course, life is going to go on after Vader's death. If you're watching it for Vader's story, fine, stop watching after episode 6. But if you're watching for Star Wars, it does still continue on, very much so. And I think that there is an homage paid to Vader and Anakin's story. Like Jacob just said, he is very much a mirror image almost of Ben, and I think that his redemption happens like in reverse to Anakin's fall to the dark side. I think that this is like if you played this movie is like if you played episode 3 backwards, where it's as though he starts off the masked badass in this film in particular, and then he, because of like the people who he has these connections to, he begins to sort of be pulled from that within a couple sharp tugs in a row, I would say, in a very short span of time. But, it begins further back than that. It does begin, I think, with Rey in The Last Jedi, and how their mutual understanding of one another. He thinks that he is seducing her to the dark side, but I think she is sort of bringing him a little bit to the light there. But that's not really what the movie is about. But I think in terms of his journey, it really is like he wants power. He starts off wanting power until he realizes that he can have love. And on Anakin's side of the coin, it's he. Sawyer's laughing because I made this edit of in like 2016 of screen caps of Anakin's fall to the dark side and Ben's predicted redemption, because it was only after The Force Awakens. I was looking a couple years ahead of time, but and it said on Anakin's side, he loved the girl until he wanted the power, and on Ben's side it said he wanted the power until he loved the girl. And it went like kind of viral, and it resurfaces every couple of years, every time there's Reylo discourse. And that was before I was even doing content creation. I just made a stupid little edit and popped it onto Tumblr, and then everyone reposted it without my watermark sort of cropped out. Anyway. I really do feel that way still. I was hoping for that to happen, and then I really do feel like it panned out, that his connections, his love for people is what brought him back to the light. And that is sort of what happened with Vader as well. How his connection to Luke and his emotions towards Luke and his attachments to Luke are what brought him back to the light. But I think it's just particularly because people like to pose the sequels and the prequels in opposition. That's how I like to like draw that line almost. So I think that there is an homage being played to Anakin's story, very much so, in these movies. And I think that Ben does tie it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually would very much love maybe a comic or a book or something like that that talks about the entire trilogy, but specifically from Ben's perspective. What's happening behind the scenes, what is being said to him, from Snoke and all these things.
Yeah.
And even more than like Rise of Kylo Ren, I want to see like more of his childhood and his fall a little bit more.
I want to see him and Grogu have a play date. That needs to happen. I'm just saying.
But yeah, I mean, how about you, Kev?
So one thing I think it's important for people to understand, particularly with Star Wars, it created the whole trilogy idea from the beginning, because George Lucas sat down and wrote one film, and it was too long to make one film. So he broke it into 3 acts, and that's how we got episodes 4, 5, and 6. So yes, there are usually clear 3 acts or whatever within these films. The Phantom Menace, people think I'm knocking it when I say there's no clear protagonist or antagonist. I know the bigger arching story, and I know that it's building to something. So it's just the first act of a trilogy. So in this trilogy, each of these films have a different function. I think what you were saying, Brandon, about how we're actually seeing the journey growth, the actual character growth of these, is partly because there's only about a year that takes place between the 3 films, as opposed to, here's 3 years, here's 2 years, here's 10 years for Anakin, all the training that's off screen. I would have loved to have seen Anakin, do some training, at least some flashbacks or something. So we had this with this trilogy. I've never once thought, man, this trilogy doesn't fit together very well. As I'm watching it, like, everything builds on the things before it. And the whole idea of, they had 2 directors, so that's bad. Okay, the original trilogy had 3 directors. The Mandalorians had 8. So is it the directors or is it something else, right? So that's really not the issue. They didn't retcon everything. To me, each of the things in the film, they say, that was changed in this film because of that film. No, your understanding of it is what was supposed to change. But this always happens. Like, the whole reason we have the line, you're going to find that many of the things that we cling to, many of the truths we cling to, depend greatly on our own point of view. That was just so that we can understand that, yep, that's your dad and that's your sister, right? Like, we decided that late in the trilogy, and that's fine. We love the story. The same thing's going to be with this trilogy. I love the ending. I don't think they could have done it better unless Carrie Fisher had still been alive. I love what we got, and I love how they paid tribute to her in that. So I think it functions about as well. I mean, I'm going to give them a lot of grace, again, because of Carrie Fisher and because the third movie is always the hardest. Yeah. And a lot of trilogies out there, their third movies kind of, but not Star Wars to me.
Looking at you, X-Men: The Last Stand.
Am I the only one that liked that movie?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's because I'm not a true fan, I guess. But all right, I'll pass to the next person.
Yeah, I mean, last but certainly not least, we have Sawyer. Thoughts on this as the end of the trilogy / end of the saga?
So, I kind of like half agree and half disagree with you, Chaco, about like the 3 directors thing. I mean, since the first trilogy, we've had different directors. It's the writing where I get a little bit iffy. I think they did the best they could with what they had. I do tend to say, like, if Ryan and JJ had been like a team for every single movie, I think it would have flowed much better. Mm-hmm. But the opposite side of that coin is the original script for Duel of Fates or whatever would have messed this trilogy up so much more. And you've got all of these people saying, oh my god, that would have been so much cooler, like blah 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 blah. No, it would have messed things up so much more. Having random like non-force sensitive people on Mortis and like General Hux like committing seppuku. Like, what is
I
that?
think that kind of lightsaber suicide General Hux is kind of a striking image.
And then R2 exploding, it just sounded so dark and so, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like an awesome movie, but not as a finale to this trilogy. Like, I'm sorry, but really just think about that for a second and tell me that matches up better with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi than The Rise of Skywalker did. No way. So I am satisfied, and like I said at the beginning of this conversation, there was absolutely no way, not even George Lucas could have finished this trilogy perfectly, because when you create a fandom that has lasted, over half a century now, and you have that many people looking up to these characters, interpreting things the way they want, and falling in love with this universe and these characters, you cannot please everybody. So no matter who did the last film or the last trilogy or just finished the Skywalker saga, some people were going to be upset. And I feel like so many people did not consider that because they wanted their perfect movie. It was never going to be a perfect finale, but I do think it was the right and the perfect ending to this trilogy with what they had. They had a lot of setbacks. They had the original director who would have written a story that would have not made any sense, back out. And then they had, Carrie Fisher unexpectedly passed away. And, we had all these things that, the other trilogies didn't have to deal with. And when you have all these factors in, there was just absolutely no way that this was going to be a perfect end. But it does make sense to me, especially after joining the TikTok community and listening to you and Element 7 explain this stuff. It makes sense. There could not have been another villain. It had to be Palpatine. If we're gonna carry this through and have it be the Skywalker saga, it had to be Palpatine. It makes perfect sense, and I don't think that Rey being related to him messed anything up. I don't think that, there are issues with it. Finn was misused. Rose was a throwaway character. There are issues with these movies, but I really, every time I watch The Rise of Skywalker in particular, I always, think back to why so many people hate it, and I assume that I'm going to not like it anymore after I watch it. But every time I watch it, I still have that same feeling like, wow, I love this movie, and it means a lot to me. And I think that, a lot of people who aren't as welcoming and appreciative as of the sequels should at least acknowledge that there was no like I guarantee you that every single Star Wars fan has a slightly different version of what their perfect Skywalker ending is. Mm-hmm. And this was not Anakin's story anymore. He finished his story in Return of the Jedi because they never said he was going to restore balance forever. That was not a thing. So this was Rey's story, but it was the Skywalker story. And I think that it honored that. And I think that, I've been saying for a while, I'm sick of the Skywalkers, but I think that this ended in a great way, and I'm not upset with it, and I never was upset with it.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, because I do see complaints of people feeling like, they really liked Legends, and so they don't like this because it's not Legends. And I just, it's not valid. That's like, it's like your friend cooks you spaghetti and says, "Do you like it?" And then you're like, "I wanted a hamburger." I'm like, okay, but how is the spaghetti? It's not a hamburger, so I hate it. And you're like, that's not how that works. But as a I do agree with you. There's Sawyer though as a trilogy. I do think that Rise of Skywalker um, could have been written differently to match the flow. My big problem with it really is that it feels like they bent to the pressure um, from a lot of the, I guess, the more toxic side of the community, where people hated Finn. Finn got so much hate with the announcement. I was like, it made me really sad and uncomfortable, the stuff that was being said. But, I feel like him being sidelined is partially a result of that. I feel strongly that Kelly Marie Tran being sidelined was also from that. And there's just, certain, I think Rey being a blood relative of Palpatine came because of people complaining that they thought she was too powerful, which is super weird because she didn't actually do much. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it as a trilogy. However, the character's journey and the character's arcs, with the exception of truly of Finn in the final movie, makes sense. And I can't agree with people who think this retconned The Last Jedi in really any way. Like we got new information, but when I look at Poe's journey from being this hothead to him thinking more clearly and thinking about others and being an actual military leader, he continued on that journey. Rey continued on her journey that was established there. Especially Luke. Luke took to lessons what he took at the end and saved the galaxy, and he was still that. It would be weird if he reverted afterwards. So yeah, I mean, I feel like as a trilogy, it could have wrapped a little bit better, but as an end to the saga, I actually like it a lot, because this movie tackles this trilogy tackles what does it mean to be a Skywalker? What does it mean to be a hero? If I know Anakin wasn't mentioned by name in the film, but I don't feel it would have made sense to have mentioned him by name. This is the shadow of Vader. Vader is mentioned in every single one of these films, and spoiler, Vader is Anakin. But Vader's impact on the galaxy.
I yell that at every Star Wars film when it comes out. I'm like, Anakin, Darth Vader's Luke's father. Like since about since the first prequel came out, and I don't know. I just like being like that. Spoiler. There's one more thing I want to add, Brandon, about their characters. Rey and Ben both had these visions of what was going to happen, and they both seemed like they were getting frustrated. He's like, "You're going to turn." She's like, "No, you're going to turn." It's like Spider-Man pointing at each other, right? But at the end, they were both right. They only saw the picture partially. Mm-hmm. And I think that also is a part of their whole intertwined journey together.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, and it also kind of makes me think about how, man, I had a thing, and it's gone now. Like you saying that made it start to come back, but I guess we can move forward. If it comes back, it'll come back, and I'll edit this part out. Okay, so now I gotta ask. We are getting a little long here, and I don't want to capitalize on all of your guys' evenings. So let me just ask. What project we got? We got 10 things in the pipeline. So what are you looking forward to the most next? And do you have any more closing thoughts on the subject, as well as let us know where to find you? Also, if you guys wouldn't mind after that to stick around for a second, because I do want to toss something else at you, but I'll make that a slightly separate video. Anyways, we will start with Sawyer.
Yes, okay. Well, of course, the last time I have to do it. Yeah. I think I am very fortunate to have been on several podcasts with you lately. And it's always a phenomenal time doing so. So you've already heard me say that I'm probably most excited for the Acolyte, which might be a little bit before we get it, but you, Element, and I have been on the High Republic train. I still have to read the comics. I haven't gotten around there, but you guys were the ones who said you don't want to miss this, and you were right. So that's what I'm most excited for. I'm excited to see the Sith hopefully in a similar fashion that we see the Jedi in this new era, because they, I would like my understanding of the Sith to drastically change the way that Light of the Jedi had my views on the Jedi change. So I'm very, very excited to see the end of the High Republic when we finally get there. And what was the other question? Oh, how do you find me? Oh, right. Yeah, no, and as far as content goes, I am Sawyerism on TikTok and on Instagram, mostly on TikTok though. And Hannah and I do our own podcast, which we post every Saturday at noon Mountain Standard Time. It's called the Star Wars Podcast. Yes, you heard that right. And it's on YouTube and on Spotify.
Awesome. And yeah, definitely check out that podcast because it is great as well. Sadly, Hannah has not joined us on that High Republic train, but she's gonna. But yeah, Hannah, what are you looking forward to? Closing thoughts, and where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Kenobi. I am really fascinated by like those lost years and what could they possibly like do to make it, fit both ends of the magnet. Like what is going to bridge that, and how are they going to, I guess, fit it in with everything else that's happened. I'm also really excited for the Acolyte. I am, yes, 10 chapters into Light of the Jedi. However, I don't need to know anything about the High Republic. I think it sounds cool.
We're gonna give you crap for this all night when we go on VC. You know that, right?
Anyway, you can find me on TikTok at Discount Bo-Katan. Like Sawyer said, we are also on the Star Wars podcast every weekend. And closing thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker, I think, watch it again and just enjoy it and try not to analyze it when you're try not to think too hard about what does everything mean. Just come along for the ride. Yeah.
Take it for what it is. And I have been kind of trying to tell everyone, especially my followers, this lately, because I do have a lot of followers who prefer Legends to the sequels. You're lying if you tell me you can't find one thing you like about every piece of Star Wars media. And if you haven't done that so far, go back and watch everything, and you'll find something.
I just get your head out of the film theory angle and watch it.
I thought you were going to say something else. Head out of somewhere else. But...
Oh.
Yeah, flashbacks of my childhood. But anyway.
Also, I like to point out that Hannah also serves at the Temple of Gitas. So if, anyways, Jacob, how about you?
So my favorite project or most anticipated project is hands down, it's Ahsoka. I cannot wait for that show. All the shows. I mean, I'm here for everything. Give me anything. Give me more D Squad. I don't care. The droid stories. I'm here for all of it. And yeah, all the tie-ins. I love that we've got a Mandoverse. That name isn't catching on. I'm not going to pull a Darcy and be like, yeah, it's totally catching on, but that's really what it is. And so there's that. In terms of, I'll do my closing thought and then I'll say where I can be found. When you watch films, you guys and gals, if you want to enjoy it, try to relax about it before you go in. Relax your expectations. Relax your preconceived whatevers. I went into the Guardians of the Galaxy thinking I'm just going to go in there and eat some popcorn and watch a film. I was blown away. I loved it. But I had no expectations. Some people may not have loved it or whatever. Same thing for me with Captain Marvel. The same thing with all of these sequel movies.
I've never met anyone who didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, well, then that's...
I hope those people don't exist, but you have your opinion.
I liked the first Thor movie, but whatever. And Thor 2. But I guess but because I don't go into these films with like, it better be this. Although I was in the chat kind of joking about The Matrix is my favorite trilogy. The Matrix 4 coming out makes me a little nervous. That's mostly a joke, but I do try to go in with no expectations, and then I'm not disappointed. I either love it or I'm just like, eh. And then if I'm just then I go on with my life, and I don't have an ulcer in my stomach to worry about, and all kinds of problems because I'm stressed out about films. I think if your whole life is dedicated to hating a fictional story, then you need to seek professional help. There you go. That's my closing thought. Otherwise, just enjoy it, and you're going to be better off in life. I'm J. Kevin Parker on all the socials. What I'm signed into the chat on is actually my YouTube channel, which is called Epic Worldview. I hashtag most of my TikToks with Epic Worldview. I've got something coming out in the next 12 hours on my YouTube channel about Ochi's Dagger. Speaking of The Rise of Skywalker. So I did the audio before this, and then I'm about to finish it, wrap production on that one, and get it out there to my channel. So there will be a 5th video on my channel for, the couple of dozen people that are subscribed. So more content coming there.
Awesome. This has been a great talk. I can't wait to rewatch it and then start doing my ranking. So thank you guys so much for joining and for being part of the community. Just appreciate the hell out of all of you.
Same, Brandon.
And thanks everyone in the chat for your guys' support. Again, I am Darth Chaco. If you're here, you probably know who I am and where to find me. Also, I'm on a podcast called Diet in the Force with Element 7, and so yeah, feel free to check us out over there. We got some dope merch. Anyways, love you guys. May the Force be with you.